before the PowerPoint comes on, what I've tried to do in my presentation is, because I know part of the objectives, the road that a lot of this work is leading to is the actual book, which will bring these ideas and different approaches together, is to go wide and deep at the same time, to create a presentation that would be a work of reference for the educated reader, but who really doesn't know that much about the subject, and at the same time to go into particulars that the person who knows the subject, it would enhance their understanding, and to leave it open at the same time. I'm aware of the limitations of what we do and also the ambition of what we do. And what's exciting is the new territory we're covering here. And it's like we're refreshing something as essential as a tree. Because as Dr. Vagashwari said in her presentation, it's the essential here is the sensibility and the reception and the creativity of the common man in history, common man and woman in history. So populism and popular culture, and whether it unifies people or separates people, okay? But basically it's this complex of the alliance, the relationship between the two. I want to say that when I started studying and writing about popular culture a lifetime ago, it was a no-no in the Anglo-American world. You weren't supposed to talk about popular culture because it wasn't part of the elite world of knowledge and of discourse. And gradually what we've seen in the last 20, 30, 40 years is it's become essential, it's become mainstream. So that's one thing very interesting about it. But there's still also a division between the people who think in terms of high culture and low culture, particularly in the humanities. So populism and popular culture. So my contents will be threefold, bingo, bango, bongo, to delineate territory, basic definitions, talk about the counterbalances, the disadvantages and advantages of the popular culture populism relation, using America as my case study focus for reasons I'll suggest, and then conclusion. So introduction, basic questions I'm trying to answer is what is popular culture and how is it populist? Why does American popular culture matter? How is American popular culture history? And I'll occasionally abbreviate it as APC. How does popular culture unite or divide in its alliance with populism? And what's missing? So, first of all, America has been the great purveyor of popular culture globally. Every nation has its popular culture, but America's been the great purveyor. I think a key monumental mark here is Henry Luce, the editor of Time Fortune magazine, Sports Illustrated, who was a great press baron of his day, said in 1941 in an editorial called The American Century, there's already an immense American internationalism. American jazz, movies, slang, machines, and patented products are the only things that every community in the world recognizes in common. We are already a world power in very human ways. Very prescient of Luce. Defining popular culture itself, I think the best definition remains that of Marshall McLuhan from Mechanical Bride in 1951. He calls it the folklore of industrial man, the folklore of industrial man. So it's something that goes back into the 19th century, extends into the 21st. I think in particular, it's mores, customs. It's the particular ways of life and legends that transmit fundamental interpretations of life and the values of a nation. And it's culture. Now, culture, we can get very complicated about the word culture, but I think it's best to keep it essential. It seems to me culture is essentially the process of growth and development. As the Cheyenne in America have the saying, the Cheyenne tribe, as the soil, so the sprouting. So one is born in Bangalore or one is born in Boston. We're all born the same, but then we are shaped in a different way. From the Latin cultura, to till the land, agriculture. Why American popular culture? Well, first of all, it seems to me America is an empire of the imagination and the goods. Some people would say an empire of illusions. But it's an empire with two forces. On the one hand, the soft power of its entertainment industry, of its popular culture, and the hard power of its military, of its aerospace. And American popular culture has been essential to make America a nation that has had the world's largest number of immigrants in the 20th and 21st centuries. So its popular culture has become the world's dominant form of the thing. And curiously unbridled by government, of course, except in wartime, First World War and Second World War. But it's a commercial product that tends to respond most of the time to audience demands. So it tells us about the audience. And it articulates the US model as the land of opportunity, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In a way, American popular culture is a superb form of propaganda, a positive propaganda, if you will. And it particularly shapes people at a younger age. University youth from Berkeley to Bangalore, for them, it's a fundamental formative cultural knowledge and social interaction and an expression of youth culture. When I was at Bangalore, I would mention an American TV sitcom. Whoa, the class would know about it. Okay. Whereas if I was in America and I asked about an Indian sitcom, they wouldn't know about it. So the set of artifacts differ from country to country, but it seems to me similarities are too big to overlook and differences are too small to matter. How is popular culture history? How is popular culture history? Well, it's cultural studies. And cultural studies come from history, which develops from cultural history. For me, the leading figure here was Jacob Burckhardt in his Civilization of the Renaissance. And what cultural studies does is to assess the values and sensibilities of an era and its humanistic creations, which nowadays would be in the popular arts of the industrial age. So if you go back to the Elizabethan era, it would be Shakespeare's plays at the Globe and Blackfriars theaters, which would give you an understanding of the Elizabethan age and the Elizabethan sensibility. In the modern era, it's the process of the mass media and the popular culture it produces, from Edison Studios around 1900 through Facebook of present day. Popular culture is fundamentally populist. I think it as a popular narrative, populist as a popular narrative. Can be a monoculture, everybody relating to the same thing, like 9/11, or microculture, by separate groups. It's a myth maker for the nation and for groups. It expresses both the logic of popular ideals and political emotions. Political emotions, perhaps more than political ideas. So it's like could it be like the difference between the Declaration of Independence and the US Constitution? That is, the popular culture is a popular statement of standards, a statement of values, like our friend, the Declaration of Independence there, as opposed to law, which is the Constitution. So it's not law, but it is values, it is principles, it is standards. How and why is the popular culture populism alliance important? Well, the importance of popular culture populist force seems to me in the relationship, many aspects, but one of the clearest is between the people and their leaders, political, popular heroes, or celebrities. So the popular culture shows how the president communicates to America. So we saw Barack Obama do that with his elegance, with his friends, with his Hollywood connections. And at the same time, the president is explained by popular culture. He favors, like Trump and tweet, for example, or the popular culture judges the president, like the extent to which it makes a mockery of him or parodies the leader. So, cut to the quick. In the 21st century, figure out the relationship between popular culture and populism using American popular culture as a case study. What has been the populist advantages, disadvantages, and advantages, which has a kind of babushka doll contents of values. And in particular, how have American popular culture messages and receptions changed since 9/11, the last 20 years? So, dominant populist readings of life have disadvantages in the 20th century, then populist readings have advantages. I'll give you 12 of each. So, disadvantages. Seems to me the first thing we had was TV and movie series, phenomenal growth of the series, and which dominated the entertainment industry. Two examples, The Sopranos and The Office. Meaning the conclusions are not swiftly resolved. Stories are not told that whether there's a resolution after 2 hours, but it's open. Life is more complicated than it used to be. There is no clear solution. And ridicule works. Ridicule rules in many ways, which you saw in Sopranos, Wire, and The Office. War has generally not, America has two major wars during that period, Afghanistan and Iraq, and war has generally not been idealized or romanticized. It's a hard job with no clear winner, which we can see with the series Over There from 2005, or the best-selling novel about Iraq War, The Yellow Birds, 2012, which was a movie in 2017-18. Third, the loser became a dominant figure in American narrative. This didn't happen in the Great Depression. You had this, but now it came up, and it came up in a very ambiguous way, like with Clint Eastwood's movie, The American Sniper, who becomes a tragic loser by the end of his story, killed by someone in the American military. You also have the fool or the jester, who's become a dominant, dangerous figure in U.S. national politics. On the left, George W. Bush, who is constantly presented in a foolish manner, mimicking Alfred E. Newman here, or on the right, Donald Trump, shown as the Joker in the White House, the jester who has taken over the king's throne. There's a theme of the haunted, the haunting, the despair in the popular culture, particularly visible in the rush, the tsunami of zombie stories, like The Walking Dead in particular, which is going, and the word toxic, which was voted in 2018 the word of the year. And then the storytelling and song, there's the importance of the great, like anti-hero, I would say, has just disappeared, but there's the renewal of the hero or the villain, as in particularly, the movie The Joker of 2019, although we see it in other examples. I think this was activated also by the politics. After 9/11, W. Bush said, either you are with us or you're with the terrorists. You're either with us or against us. You're either a good guy or a bad guy. And so the combination came together with Trump, a jester, a haunted hero, a hero, and bringing out the hero-villain dichotomy. Here on the cover of the Daily News, here in another study of his dangerous charisma. Bob Woodward, the great Woodward and Bernstein Washington Post journalist, said, with Trump, the optimistic American story has turned into a nightmare, expressing a nervous breakdown in the executive power of the most powerful country in the world, and bringing together those three types in popular culture. There's been a high degree of corrosive Manichaeanism. This is especially visible, for example, in a movie, World War Z, that came out in 2013, in the conflict between the Israeli and the Palestinians becoming zombies. And there's also been the growth of civil rights, but I think a divisive civil rights. For example, in the LGBTQ and the woke movement in America, the LGBTQ films into the mainstream, and to what extent does the popularity of these gender special interest films aggravate the culture wars? Number 9, American popular culture as America has become fragmented, polarized, broken up into pieces. The biggest music award in 1950, it was the Grammy Award in America. In 1958, there were 29 categories of popular music. By 2017, there are more than 84 categories of popular music that get awards. So the audience has broken up into pieces. There's also perhaps a runaway popular culture. The objective, perhaps for the mass media that produces the popular culture, has been spectacle at any cost. Where did 9/11 come from? Perhaps the 9/11 groundwork was laid by the New York City disaster bestsellers and movies. Where did Osama bin Laden get that idea? Well, look at the disaster movies that all about New York that came before then. And did U.S. mass media and popular culture help to lay the imaginative groundwork for 9/11? And then after it happened, 9/11, it was broadcast live for a good week on American television, like a movie you couldn't turn off. Popular culture perhaps fosters a climate of distrust in America. Americans are recently asked, do you trust your neighbor, by the Pew Research. 2050, 60% of Americans said yes. 2020, 30% said they trust their neighbors. Among millennials, people born 1980, 1995, only 19% said that they trusted their neighbors. And finally, what does American popular culture do without a Cold War? The USA lost its counterweight, a single national purpose. plot, drama, comedy need conflict. Conflict was now heightened among genders and races because of this, now fragmented by streaming, social media, algorithmic conditioning. Where's the competition? Then, the advantages. There's been a spectacular growth in gender equality. These are the advantages, okay? This is a chart of the number of that have gone up in Congress, U.S. National Congress, but you see this everywhere. Women make up now more than a quarter of the 117th U.S. Congress membership. Unprecedented number. The elite, which will always be with us, has become much more porous than it ever has. Here you have this guy, which you probably know, and all this is Michelle Wu, who is set to become the mayor of Boston, Massachusetts. Boston was the enclave for the Irish politician, for the Italian politician, but no, now it's the Chinese American. And the news anchors. The news anchors are very much a different kind of group, men, women, and all sorts of ethnic groups. Number three, with Obama, I would say American popular culture melded with the presidency. American popular culture became the way that the president speaks to people. You saw this being tried before with Richard Nixon and Elvis Presley. Didn't work very well. Reagan did a good job of it, but Reagan was more like the geriatric group of Hollywood stars. And Obama, I think Obama hit the button on the head. Younger, he was elegant, and he brought in star power. So here is Obama with George Clooney, and there is the poster which came from the session with George Clooney. American villainy has been recognized as never before. Why is this good? Because it seems to me the first step in fixing a problem is to identify it. And a great example of villainy here is the series Breaking Bad, 2008, 2013, the successful businessman Gustavo Fring, who, self-assured, intellectual, vicious, amoral, and efficient, like something out of Shakespeare, this guy, who says to Walter White at one point, if you try to interfere, this becomes a much simpler matter. I will kill your wife, I will kill your son, I will kill your infant daughter. Whoa! And yeah, right, okay, Gustavo. Then fix the broken, fix the infrastructure. We don't have time, but one of the great movies that's got a lot of streaming, enormous amount of streaming, and enormous amount of radio time has been Bob Dylan's song "Everything Is Broken." So that there's a sense in the popular culture of the things that are broken that need to be fixed. Public health has become a national concern as never before, due of course to the COVID, and due of course to the press news that has come out, and the conflict, the dramatic conflict between the pro and the vaxxers, especially the infodemic on social media. So, and notice that the people opposed to vaccination has gone constantly down. However, now it's down to 19%. But you get spectacular visions of this in the popular culture. This is in March 2021. The young children that were brought in by their mothers to the capital of Boise, Idaho, to burn their face masks, to say no, they will not have the civil rights of not having face masks taken away from them. Then the portrayal of the toxic financial industry, especially visible in movies such as Wall Street, Margin Call, Wolf of the Wall Street, and The Big Short. I'd say Margin Call being the best of these. The positive high-tech cultural and scientific developments of the 21st century have been articulated in the popular culture. Pandora's box of social media, COVID-19's vaccine as a rapid digital development, and educational technology, EdTech. Plus, the first Twitter best-selling novel, No One Is Talking About It, by Patricia Lockwood of 2021. Very interesting novel. Coming to the end here, the erratic growth of the green movement, nevertheless, has been happening, especially spurred by Avatar of 2009, and then by leaders such as Ralph Nader, Al Gore, Barack Obama, and John Kerry. America's forever wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, ended finally, just recently. And there's a message of American popular culture that these wars were terrible, driven home. Before a lot of the wars that have happened in America, during the war, there was an enormous amount of patriotic support of the wars in the popular culture, not with these wars. Whether it's Valley of Elah, American Sniper, or Body of Lies, the presentation has been overall 90% negative. Last 2 points. The shortcomings of American higher education have been recognized. And it's especially visible in the documentary Ivy Tower of 2014 and the best-selling movie Spring Breakers of 2012. Last point, I think a lot of the flip side of the pandemic has been the prosperity it has brought. There's been what's called creative destruction in economic liberalism. So there's been a phenomenal growth of communication services such as Netflix, Tencent, Facebook, Alphabet, C Group. And information services, communication services, not just American, but global, German, Chinese, as well as American. Conclusion. 4 points. Bingo, bango, bongo, bongo. If the popular culture is soft power and science and technology, aerospace, or hard power, what's the difference? Is perhaps hard power a visible world of power, the material, and soft power an invisible world of power? It's in the imagination and the subconscious. It's a kind of spiritual belief and power from people. As E.T. Hall said of culture, it is the silent language. Number 2, what about video games? I didn't mention video games. Computer games in popular culture, they're enormously important. As of 2018, the video game industry generated about 135 billion annually, while the film industry's global box office in 2019 was only 42.2 billion. So you really have to look at video games as well here, I think. Let's not overemphasize the importance of popular culture. Popular culture matters, but it only matters so much. The great populist journalist Bob Woodward said in 2004, and remember, this guy cracked Nixon. This guy cracked the Watergate scandal in the White House. He said, to say that the press brought down Nixon, that's horseshit. The press always plays a role, whether by being passive or being aggressive, but it's a mistake to emphasize. So it's the role it plays. Shortcomings of cultural studies analysis, perhaps it's too literary. It focuses on the aesthetic rather than the economic. It focuses on eloquence rather than brute force. It focuses on the imagined rather than the real. Yet, go back to the beginning, look at the U.S. Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Perhaps popular culture and populism are a matched pair. They're kinds of twins. As the British poet C.A. Swinburne said, body and spirit are twins. God only knows which is which. For those who are interested in knowing more about this subject, I was just a book by Trevi Troy, What Jefferson Read, 200 Years of Popular Culture in the White House, by Vando and Gopnik, High and Low. The recent book by Cravallo, American Popular Culture in the Era of Terror, 2015, and The Classic American Cultural Patterns by Edward Stewart of 1991. And that's all, folks. Thank you very much.